Oh, I see people trickling in. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Priori. I'm the digital marketing specialist at TPGi. We're just going to wait 1 minute as people sign in, and we will get started briefly.
Yeah, while we wait, add in the chat where you're located. I'm here in Sacramento, California. Let me see where else people are in the world. London, Valencia, okay. Boston, Colombia, Ontario, Peru, Chicagoland, Kentucky, Florida, Edinburgh. This is great to see. This is what I always know. This is what actually one of my favorite parts of webinars, just at the start and seeing how this cause and business of accessibility unites us from all over the world. And I think that all of us, we work for the web. So I feel like you usually say thank yous at the end of a talk, but I want to say thank you at the start. Thank you to all of you for attending. You all are making a substantive effort in accessibility and moving the web forward. So I'm grateful for every one of you.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. And I'm still seeing a few people trickle in, so we're just going to give it 1 more minute and we will get started very soon.
Dublin, Iowa, Toronto. Okay. Carolina. Grand Rapids, Michigan. I used to live in Sacramento. Okay. People tell me Sacramento is like a Midwestern town. I don't know what that means exactly, but people told me that a lot.
All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our webinar that is performing ARC Toolkit, a comprehensive guide. So Aaron Farber is our Senior Accessibility Platform Consultant. But before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items I'd like to get to. So firstly, this session is being recorded, and we will email everyone the recording after the event. Secondly, we have captions available, so feel free to turn those on and use them as needed. Next, we have time for live Q&A later in the webinar, so please use the Q&A box and we'll answer as many of your questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation. It's super helpful if you can put them in the Q&A box. Sometimes if you send them in the chat, they can get lost, so we'll still monitor it, but it's easier for us to see if you send them there. So thank you for that in advance. And then lastly, if anyone needs any accessibility support, training, or usability testing, we'll send out an email with a link to schedule a time to speak with one of our experts. So with that, I will kick it off to Aaron and let him get started. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Aaron.
Of course. Hi, everyone. Welcome to ARC Toolkit, a comprehensive guide. My name is Aaron Farber, and I am an ARC platform consultant. Before we get started, I'll just talk quickly about my own role and kind of journey in accessibility. I've worked at TPGi now for 4 years, and prior to coming to TPGi, I ran my own kind of accessibility consulting shop, working with very small businesses, the kind that would use WordPress or Shopify, and I'd go into their site, and so I'd audit the site, and then I'd handle the development for those fixes. And so I was using ARC Toolkit actually before I ever came to TPGi. And now here at TPGi, I'm supporting accessibility at the biggest brands in the world. And I started here at TPGi as a accessibility engineer, which is primarily delivering manual WCAG audits. And then I became embedded with a very large tech company, helping them set up their own internal accessibility program. And now I'm back here at the mothership at TPGi, promoting and training organizations to use our products. So with that said, let's really get into it. So first, an overview of ARC Toolkit, ARC itself. Then we'll talk about getting started. Then we'll run a scan and talk about addressing scan results and cover ARC Toolkit's advanced features. So I think today's webinar should have something for everyone, even people that are already, fairly dedicated users of ARC Toolkit. And I'm going to be jumping back and forth between this slide deck and a web browser. So I'm sorry for the scrolling and movement, but I'll do my best to be economical in movement here. All right, so first of all, the Accessibility Resource Center, ARC, provides the tools and resources to plan and execute in every area of accessibility. ARC empowers designers and developers to independently solve issues while growing their understanding of accessibility over time. And I use this word empowerment because empowerment to me is providing evidence of one's ability to do something themselves. And that's what my goal is today, is to show you how you can do these things yourself and start making improvements to your site, growing your understanding of accessibility, and becoming an accessibility leader for your organization. Accessibility is just a wonderful way to make an impact at your organization. All right, so the ARC platform is made up of several parts. First, there is ARC Toolkit. Then there is, which is our free Chrome extension allowing you to scan pages. ARC Monitoring, which connects our automated scans, our rules engine, with our knowledge base, which provides a wide range of techniques for front-end development and just delivering accessible online experiences. However, when you have an issue that is so custom and specific to your site or application that it can't be answered by one of the hundreds of articles in our knowledge base, we have the help desk where you can get immediate, direct support from one of our accessibility experts. And I just love doing the help desk here at TPGi. I find for a lot of organizations, especially smaller ones, there's not necessarily a need for a full-time accessibility expert, but there is a need to always be able to talk to an accessibility expert on demand. And lastly, our API. When you are shifting left, you're moving accessibility earlier in that process of delivering an online experience. You're moving it from deployment to development to design, you're shifting it left. All right, so ARC Toolkit is a free Chrome browser extension, which provides a set of semi-guided automated accessibility tools. So with ARC Toolkit, you can rapidly scan pages for code level WCAG violations, highlights a page's user experience for assistive technology users, and visually inspect issues in color contrast, text formatting, and graphical elements. See, with ARC Toolkit, you're able to cover WCAG success criteria, that is accessibility guidelines, which can't be covered by automated testing alone. All right, so first of all, let's talk about installation for ARC Toolkit. Yeah, you can reach ARC Toolkit from TPGi's website, or, which eventually will lead you to the Google Web Store. So, hey, just Google ARC Toolkit, it'll come right up. All right, now, once you're in the Chrome Web Store, yes, select Add to Chrome. No special assembly required. It's just a Chrome extension. Now, once the extension is added to Chrome and enabled, you open developer tools and you can right click the page and select inspect, or in the context menu, or you can press Control Alt I in Windows or Control Command plus I in Mac. And there's other methods to use developer tools. If people on the call would like to know more of the keyboard shortcuts for using developer tools, I'm happy to talk about it at the end, but just kind of for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of just talk about, just directly how to do this without keyboard, just, the action itself, if that makes sense. All right, so once you have installed the extension, go to the extension in My Extensions. And so I'm going to pull up I'm going to show you how to reach that. So I'm going to drag a window onto here. Here we go. And to select it, can I move this out of here? So to select the extensions, you select Manage Extensions. So you click this little puzzle icon in your browser header, select Manage Extensions. For ARC Toolkit, select Details. And then on this Details page, I recommend selecting Allow in Incognito browser. So this way you can run it not only in your main browser, but also if you create an incognito tab. And that's really helpful because I find very often when people are evaluating their sites, they're not aware that they've dismissed a cookie consent banner or what they've done on the site, that they're viewing actually a site that's a little bit different than what it is for your regular user. Next, allow access to file URLs. And this is a really powerful setting because it allows you to scan pages which are not on the web, right? Like that they're just on your local machine. So local host 3000, right? All of that. So you can scan apps that you're working on or just any HTML content. So be sure to check these. And another great thing with Chrome, with ARC Toolkit is, like any Chrome extension, it automatically updates. So you'll always have, if you have that browser setting that to automatically update extensions, your ARC Toolkit version will always be up to date. We'll always have our latest rules. All right, back to our slides. All right. So now once you've opened developer tools, and developer tools are a set of tools within your browser which allow web developers to inspect every aspect of a web page, from its performance, its security, and now its accessibility with ARC Toolkit. So in the header within Dev Tools, there's a set of tabs. You'll see ARC Toolkit. Depending on how your browser looks, ARC Toolkit may be located within a drop-down menu that's expanded from these kind of caret icons. Now, with ARC Toolkit, you can run a scan whenever, wherever. ARC Toolkit makes it easy to scan pages which require authentication, right? So you can log into your site. You don't have to script that out for some API or monitoring to reach. You can simply, again, just log into your site and do that. It allows you to scan pages behind a firewall or other security policies, specific points in a user journey, so you can get the page into your preferred state. Like maybe you want to trigger some dialogue to appear and then scan that dialogue. You're able to do that very easily with ARC Toolkit. And as I noted earlier, you can scan local file URLs, so content that is not available on the web yet. Now, in terms of reporting issues in ARC Toolkit, we have three kinds of assertions. And I say assertions because we assert that these elements do not comply with one of our automated accessibility rules. So we have errors. An error is an element automatically identified as a WCAG violation. We have alerts. Alert is an element which requires further manual inspection to confirm as a WCAG violation. And last, we have best practices, an element which may not represent a WCAG violation, but may impact the user experience for assistive technology users. And one note is alerts are not to be thought of as less severe than errors. They simply require further manual inspection to confirm as a WCAG violation. And I find typically, alerts can be even perhaps more severe than errors in terms of user impact. All right, so earlier I mentioned ARC monitoring. I want to talk quickly about the relationship between ARC Toolkit and ARC monitoring. So ARC Toolkit and ARC monitoring both use the ARC rules engine. The main strength of ARC monitoring is that each issue it reports is paired with ARC's knowledge-based resources. So if you use ARC monitoring, you have access to all of ARC's features. Now, ARC Toolkit only reports the issues. It does not provide these knowledge-based resources to understand, test, and solve the issue. So kind of to give you, what this looks like in practice. So ARC monitoring displays the HTML code for flagged elements and with its supporting knowledge-based resources. So here we see a screenshot for input has no accessible name. We see that we have the code snippets as well as knowledge-based resources telling you how to understand that guideline, 4.12 name role value, how to test for this issue to be able to gauge its impact on user experience, and last, solving the issue, actually correcting the code in your site. Alternatively, here we see ARC Toolkit enables testers to visually inspect the flagged elements on the page. So they kind of work hand in hand. Whenever I'm reviewing monitoring, I also have Toolkit open so that I can visually inspect those issues, easily find them on the page. And that's what I have to say about monitoring. Monitoring, ARC monitoring is available as a free or paid subscription. With any level of paid subscription, it comes with our entire knowledge base, our training modules, our API, all of that. And with that said, I will not be speaking more about ARC monitoring. I am focusing today on ARC Toolkit, our free Chrome extension, which you can download now. No sign up required. All right, so when we run a scan, ARC Toolkit provides a code snippet, the ability to view the code in the elements panel, and to copy the XPath address. Let's look at that in practice. Whoop, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Oh, yes, that's right. Here we go. All right. So let's right click on the page and select inspect. I select ARC Toolkit. Then I select run tests. Here it displays all of the issues that ARC found on the page. And yes, excellent question. ARC Toolkit and ARC monitoring use the same exact rules engine. We have seen differences in scan results when scanning the page with these two tools. Yes, there may be some slight difference between the versions, but that's only temporary. I think like our updates to our rules engine first come to ARC monitoring, and then usually within a few weeks, it's integrated into ARC Toolkit. So to see those differences is expected behavior, and just a temporary, matter. Okay, so we've run a scan of the page, and now let's select one of the results. Let's say non-active elements in tab order. See, when we expand the issue, notice that the elements which violate, this rule are highlighted within the viewport, so we can easily visually identify them. And you see here that we provide the code snippets. The magnification icon allows you to reveal the code in the elements panel. I'll select it. You see it pulls up. You can view the code, not just the individual element, but its surrounding code, which is very helpful, of course. next, this clipboard icon you can do to select to copy the XPath. And XPath is kind of an old school thing, right? It's an XML-like query. Essentially, it's an address for an exact HTML node on the page. So that helps teams understand the exact element that is being referred to. So let's look at an example how we do that. So I can copy the XPath. I just clicked it. You get a little alert, it says XPath copied. Now I can go to elements. I click within the elements panel, or you could, I believe, press Control-J. Then I can paste it in, and then it highlights the exact element on the page. So that's how XPaths work. If the code snippet is not sufficient, the XPath is another way to easily find the location for an element. All right. Whoop. Sorry. There we go. Okay. One other nice, great feature about ARC monitoring is, and actually I want to talk, or I'm sorry, ARC Toolkit. One other thing I want to note here is that ARC Toolkit not only displays the code snippet, but it also provides the WCAG success criterion, which the element violates. And we provide a link to the official W3C documentation if you want to go down the rabbit hole. And again, you know, it's important to understand the difference between these official W3C resources and those within the ARC platform. Like WCAG, the Web Contents Accessibility Guidelines, is used in like legal and governmental settings. Like it uses a lot of bureaucratic jargon, and it's not something that you would read, you know, like end to end. So, you know, with the resources within ARC monitoring, our ARC knowledge base, they're written in a way that is more, comprehensible, easier for people that may be new to accessibility. All right. Now, one powerful feature of ARC is it allows you to scope results to a component. So you can highlight the component in the elements pane, open ARC Toolkit, and you can check on run on selected node only. Now, when the selected node does not appear, you know, which may happen depending on how a web page is built, close the browser tab and reopen the page in a new tab. So let's look at this in practice. Here we go. All right. So let's say I'm viewing, look at how many issues we have on this page. So we have hundreds of issues. Okay. And it's a little daunting for me. And besides, you know, as a developer at Awesome Store, the main page isn't my responsibility. As a developer at Awesome Store, I'm only responsible for the header of the site. So I just want to know about those issues. So, okay, I can use, in developer tools, I can click in the top left-hand corner, I can select an element in the page to inspect it. And then I can highlight it here. You see we can see what element on the page is selected. Then I can go to ARC Toolkit. And well, I don't see it now, which is, you know, let me see if I can get it going. And you see it's not coming up because I've had this browser tab open a really long time. So let's close this. There we go. And now I can check to run on selected node only. And look at that. I don't have any issues in this. And oh, it's because I only selected that element. Whoops, I meant to select this header. There we go. And here we can see just the issues that are within the header. And what's great about this, again, is that it makes it easy to delegate findings to just the teams responsible. Because, again, for the largest sites, you're going to have multiple teams working on aspects of the site. I see a lot of, e-commerce and media websites where the main page content is managed by one team and the header by another. And as I noted again, like the run on selected node only doesn't display sometimes because if you've had the browser tab open a long time, or it kind of depends on how you select the element on the page. But we are making updates to the run on selected node only feature, which is going to be released in the next month or so. So I'm really excited for that too. So it'll be a little more versatile of like, you can do it different ways. You don't have to do just exactly the way to scope. You don't have to like follow an exact user journey to run on selected node only. All right, here we go. I keep selecting the wrong link. Here we go. All right. Now, actually, before we kind of talk about the difference between ARC rules and ARC score, I want to go back to our site and kind of give you a sense of why ARC monitoring and why ARC Toolkit is so powerful. So I select inspect on the page. I run tests. And what I think is most powerful about ARC Toolkit for developers is that it allows you to kind of play with the markup on a page and get instant feedback of whether you've solved an accessibility issue. It helps you validate your work. So let's find an example here. We have non-active element in tab order. Okay, so I'm going to reload. So it's the shop icon here. And look at that. So the issue here is that it's a generic element, but it receives keyboard focus. So the developers that built this site recognized that this is an interactive element. We know enough about accessibility that interactive elements are supposed to be keyboard operable, but they left out necessary semantic information for assistive technology users. So this doesn't expose a button roll. It's just, it receives focus and it's just announced as shop. The purpose, the functionality of the element isn't immediately clear. So, okay, so I'm going to select this element. I'm going to do role equals button. And I think we have it for this too. No, it wasn't this one. But nevertheless, let me run ARC Toolkit now. And look at that. Now we only have one non-active element in tab order. We had two. So again, like it's a really easy way to kind of play with markup and see whether you've solved the issue. And I think this is especially helpful for elements which don't expose a name to assistive technologies. So you can try using visually hidden text and ARIA label by. You can try different things and see if you're able to make the error message go away. And again, like I think one thing that is really powerful about, I see on this call right now a few names in the chat and otherwise that I recognize as people within the web accessibility community, people that are certified accessibility specialists. And among this group, I feel some of us kind of, criticize automated testing because, well, it doesn't cover all WCAG success criteria, right? And there's no substitute for manual testing. But here's the thing that I think is really underestimated when it comes to automated testing is, for one, at larger organizations, time is a real challenge. You as an accessibility expert may not always have the bandwidth, the resources to perform manual audits. So with ARC Toolkit, these automated tools, you can quickly determine which applications could be indicative of having large accessibility issues. And more than that, again, you're working at a large organization, you have lots of teams with varying expertise within accessibility. Automated testing uncovers code level issues, which can often be solved without significant engineering or even changes to a page's visual appearance. So these are the kinds of issues which, again, designers and developers can independently solve on their own. They don't need to engage like other stakeholders and all that kind of stuff. They can just work on them. And also, since they are code level issues, they're generally kind of low effort to solve. So they're able to incrementally improve their site while growing their understanding of accessibility, while they're moving to kind of like the higher level, more difficult accessibility issues. So again, like I think of ARC Toolkit, tools like ARC Toolkit is really an important step for people within accessibility to kind of grow their skills. All right. So with that said, back to here. So ARC rules and ARC's core. The ARC rules, is TPGi's in-house exclusive set of automated accessibility rules. And ARC's core is the widely popular open source rules engine. Now, I want to talk quickly about the differences between ARC rules and ARC's core. I wrote a very long blog post comparing the two. So that'll be added in the recap after for you people that have attended. I encourage you to read through it. It kind of goes down the rabbit hole about differences between the two. But in short, here's my impression. ARC rules are focused on reporting issues which could impact the user experience for people who use assistive technologies. And I want to I use that language very specifically here because a person does not file an accessibility complaint because of a WCAG violation. Maybe in some superficial way, but really they're doing it because they cannot use the web as they normally do. So ARC rules is focused on you generating the most value and predictability from your code base, and preventing the really unenviable situation of you have something in production and somebody reports an issue that they can't use the site that you were not aware of, right? So ARC rules is really seeking to help you avoid that. So ARC rules is focused on reporting issues which could be indicative of larger WCAG violations. As we noted, automated testing has its limits. There's no substitute for manual testing. So ARC rules is flagging issues which, again, are perhaps an automated WCAG violation, but as you go about the manual testing procedures provided within ARC, that is ARC monitoring, you'll uncover other WCAG violations which can't be detected via automated means. And so ARC catches issues which may elude those newer to manual testing. So I want to quickly cover just a couple of rules which are only available within the ARC rules engine, which I think are really great and I see have a really significant impact on user experience. So trying to establish why you might use the ARC toolkit over ARC's dev tools. And again, I'm not trying to poke holes at that tool, anything is good to use, any accessibility tool. But I like ARC rules best, and I want to show you kind of why I like it best and why I've always used it even before I worked at TPGi. So first, ARC flags strike-through text. So strike-through text is not inherently a WCAG violation, but screen readers by default do not announce text formatting. So you don't announce whether a text is bold or underlined or strike through, any of that. And as we know, strike through text conveys very significant meaning. So here on this slide, we see a screenshot of a thing from an insurance website, and it says eye conditions, and it says incisional surgery to correct glaucoma, a procedure called trabeculectomy or selectrostomy, is covered by the following insurance plans: Moon Life, Digna, Visual Service Plan, and Green Diamond. And we see a strike through Green Diamond. And then we see a window here for JAWS Inspect, which allows you to generate a transcript of how JAWS screen reader announces a page. And notice here that the strike through of green diamond is not announced. It's just announced like regular text. So you see, this is something where, again, it's not inherently a WCAG violation, but it has a very significant impact on user experience. Someone that is doing manual testing, that is newer to manual testing, may not even be aware that strike through text can provide, requires kind of a special accommodations. You need to take other steps in order to convey its meaning to assistive technology users. And again, this very impactful one. Next, we have content behind modal accessible. So here we see a screenshot of a make-believe beer company. And what happens when you open a beer website, right, is you're displayed a window to enter your date of birth. So ARC Toolkit is able to detect that content behind that modal is accessible. So that even though like a dialogue like this is really like you, for again, like your sighted user, they must interact with that dialogue before interacting with the main page content. So with ARC Toolkit, we've detected a really significant issue here, right? That someone is able to shop and read through the site without necessarily having completed the date of birth field yet. And I will say this is a very real issue. In fact, I received an accessibility bug bounty for making a site aware of this issue. So, which I'm happy to talk about more sometime. It's a good story. All right, next. So we've talked about, using ARC Toolkit to correct markup and immediately get feedback, whether you've solved the issue. Now let's talk about the advanced features within ARC. So we have visualized tab order. So open to ARC Toolkit in select highlight. And in the highlight pane, select the tab order button. So, okay, let's take a look here. Okay. So here we can select highlight. And then we have a set of, we can select tab order. And then you see here, let me reload this page actually. I'm only seeing 37. So let me actually choose a different site. I want to go to TPGi. Mm-hmm. There we go. That's a little easier to see. And so here we can see the actual order in which someone, navigates our website using the keyboard. And what I think is really great about this is, and I say this really as a WCAG auditor, right? I have always, one of my most disliked tasks is writing about focus order issues, because then I have to explain to the web developer, what the issue is. It goes from, the focus, if someone's navigating the site, it goes from here to there to there, and then it jumps back up, and it's just like a pain for me to explain this to someone. But with ARC Toolkit, again, you can easily generate a screenshot of the focus order issues. And again, this is a really great way to relay information to development teams. And remember, for focus order, what's our goal here is that generally the focus order should follow the same order in which one reads the page. We're looking for the order of focus to go from basically top to bottom, left to right. So as I said, the visualization is helpful for demonstrating focus order issues. The tab order must follow the order in which one logically reads and interacts with the page. And here I have an example from the Ford.com website. And I highlight this one just for a very small example here, which is that they actually use client-side JavaScript to actively set focus to certain elements on the page. So the order of the focusable elements on, as displayed by ARC Toolkit is a little bit different than what it is for the user, because again, they're using JavaScript to actively move the user to certain places on the page. Next, one great feature about ARC Toolkit is the ability to test text spacing. So 1.4.12 text spacing in content implemented using markup languages that support the following text style properties. No loss of content or functionality occurs by setting all the following and by changing no other style property. So for those unfamiliar with text spacing, disability is such an incredibly huge spectrum. Like, as I tell people sometimes, like, we can't even expect like all the different kinds of assistive technologies and ways that people use the web. And I think this is especially true for people that, perhaps have visual disabilities. There's so many different kinds of like color blindness and low vision. So WCAG has a rule that web pages basically have to allow the user the ability to transform the text on the page, to be larger, to be higher color contrast, to a different font, perhaps. So they can't predict like all the different things people do. So they require to have this kind of like space around certain things on the page in order to accommodate that. So it's a very difficult thing to test manually. No, with ARC Toolkit, we're able to automatically transform the page to see whether text formatting changes would break the UI, would break the design for the page. So let's take a look. So I'm going to scroll back here to our demo site. Whoops, I didn't mean to close it. Press Control-Shift-I. We'll open our toolkit. Here we go. I'm going to select highlight. So looking through the site. Okay, it's a pretty simple site. So maybe nothing will break, but we'll see. And look at that. I've added text spacing, and look what happens. The text overlaps the icons. We see for other things, for example, for sneakers, we can see that whether it's breaking any of the UI. So it's pretty minimal. It's just breaking the header, really. Not much stuff otherwise on the page. And look at that. We have the strike through text here. That would be flagged by ARC Toolkit as an issue. So again, this is a really powerful one, text spacing. It's a difficult thing to do yourself. All right, so to do test text spacing, select highlight and check the text spacing button. It's just that simple. And then again, you're looking through the site to see whether changing the text spacing makes any content illegible or breaks the UI. And again, like, so here we see an example that when the text spacing transformation is applied on this site, the text starts moving outside the button. And since the text is white, it moves onto a white background and it can't be perceived. Next, another functionality of ARC Toolkit is it allows you to validate HTML. So yes, WCAG success criteria 4.1.1 parsing, which has been deemed obsolete and removed from WCAG 2.2. But nonetheless, like for organizations which still use WCAG 2.0, you're responsible for 4.11 parsing. So ARC allows you the ability to validate HTML. And I will say that for our ARC rules engine for WCAG 2.2, all the parsing issues which we presently flagged with ARC rules are still flagged, but they've been remapped to other WCAG success criteria, such as 131 info relationships and 412 name role value. All right, so to validate HTML, select other tools, and now you can send the URL or the page's DOM to the W3C HTML validator. So sending the DOM is actually a really awesome feature that we allow within ARC Toolkit. Less so now because parsing is going away, and we can, and if you want, you can add applause for that in the chat, because I think we're all glad to see parsing go. But nonetheless, sending the DOM is helpful because it allows you to validate the HTML for sites which require authentication or behind a firewall, or again, for validating a specific point in user journey. If you send the URL, you're just evaluating a page that is publicly available and as it appears on page load. So again, you can send the DOM, you can do that for local file URLs, anything. Now, some other features I want to talk about here within ARC Toolkit. They allow you to view the page's ARIA usage, to view the page's use of access keys. It's also helpful for testing whether a page's multiple live regions work together without interrupting one another. And I want to point out just one or two of these other tools that I really like and use myself a lot. So, all right, so I inspect the page, I open ARC Toolkit, I select other tool, not other tools, I'm sorry, but I select highlight. And there's a couple here that I think are really great. One is background images. I find CSS background images are never flagged by automated rules engines. And, again, they're kind of used, it's difficult to test them, right? Because assistive technologies ignore background images by default. So it's helpful to be able to just highlight them on the page and see whether they are conveying any significant meaning. So we see there's only one on the site. Okay, and I can even inspect it here. And we see it has no impact. It's just some random div on the page. It's not, let me see. I scroll into view. So it's just this background here. So that's not an issue. Okay, good, great. Another tool that I like here is being able to look at the ARIA Live, as I noted. I find, especially for some of these really big enterprise applications, they have way too many ARIA Live regions. And so the ARIA Live announcements can start to conflict with each other. So it's helpful to be able to just view all of the live regions at once and see which ones you can get rid of. Another thing that is nice about ARC Toolkit is that ARC Toolkit scans not only the page, but all of the iframes and the content within those iframes on the web page. So again, iframes are a way that you embed a web page within a web page, but ultimately, as a site author, you are always responsible for the content on your site, right? So whether it's the Twitter timeline that you've gotten from other site or the Google Maps widget, you're responsible for all the content on your site. So being able to scan into the iframes is helpful. Now, I want to end with a thank you. ARC Toolkit has a public GitHub repository for reporting issues with the extension. So feel, as you use the toolkit, if you have issues with some aspect of ARC Toolkit or its findings, hey, add them to ARC Toolkit, to our public GitHub repository, and we'll address it. And I'm so thankful for the people that have done that over the years, because you've made ARC a better product. And the last thing I'll say about that is that we have some exciting new features coming to ARC Toolkit at the start of 2024. ARC is going to be adding the ability to scan the shadow DOM content. Shadow DOM is becoming more common in web development. We're also updating the ability to scope results to a specific node on the page. And we're adding automated rules which test several of the new WCAG 2.2 success criteria. I'm so excited for that, to share that with you, for the couple of people out there who are trying to conform to WCAG 2.2. But again, here at TPGi, we lead in accessibility. We're going to be the first doing WCAG 2.2 audits. I think we already are, actually. So in any case, my last slide here is accessibility is multifaceted, and it's your opportunity to make an impact on your organization. And so to help you achieve your digital accessibility goals with TPGi, it all starts with a conversation. We can help you find the right solutions for your organization. And for anyone on these webinars, I think some of you may already know I'm a resource for you. So feel free to reach out over LinkedIn, and you can book time on my calendar, and we can kind of help you get set up using, finding the right, package of ARC. And I want to say that one great kind of aspect of my job here at TPGi is, like, I'm not a salesperson. Like, I don't use Salesforce. I don't know what that is. And my only job is to help organizations find the right solution, regardless of revenue or anything else. So I love talking to organizations and going about that process with them. And I don't, again, as I said, like, I don't sell products, I sell a vision. So I hope to talk to you further about ARC. And now let's see some questions, if there are any. I haven't seen many questions in the Q&A. Oh, I have one here. It says, isn't the HTML also the XPath? Yes, it is. You don't have to copy it. We provide those two buttons there to copy the XPath to the clipboard, John. We don't, so you can copy it to the clipboard, or you can just highlight the XPath. So what he's referring to basically is, when I use ARC Toolkit, I can copy the XPath here by clicking the clipboard, or I could just highlight it. And it is nice. I do see organizations, some organizations where they just like literally just highlight this and then they paste it into spreadsheets. That's a way people can do it. But with ARC monitoring, we allow you to export it in different formats intended for different different kinds of stakeholders, which is really helpful. All right, now I see. Thank you for this. It's very approachable for new accessibility testers. Would this tool allow you to not need JAWS to test? Absolutely not. There's no substitute for testing with real assistive technologies. So only by using the assistive technologies can you determine exactly how it is announced by, to users. And with that said, there is a lot of information that you can find using ARC Toolkit and the browser's built-in developer tools without using JAWS to test. So what I mean by, like, there's no substitute here is that, like, if I select like this shopping cart here, I could look at the accessibility for the element. I see it's announced this cart with items, right? But if I were to but is that actually how it's being announced by assistive technologies? That's where, again, it's really helpful to actually use JAWS. And so again, there's just no substitute for real testing with real people. All right, we got another answer. We said suggestion for TPGi online events: enable the different view options, side-by-side view, so the people who need to see the speaker, lip readers, etc., can choose for themselves, and resize the view as needed. So, hey, to the person that wrote that, I'm very sorry. I've gotten that comment before. You're 100% right. And I have my camera on right now just to facilitate lip reading. And I wonder if I've disabled that by moving the window off screen. So if that's the case, I'm sorry. I'm not exactly sure how, like, my actions with Zoom affect the how they appear for you as the end viewer. But with that said, we provide a transcript for our webinars, and the slides will be available following the webinar. We'll do our best to make that information available. Is adding ARC Toolkit to the right-click context menu or having a direct keyboard shortcut to ARC possible and on the roadmap? Well, I actually, it's so silly. Like, I never done it before. So I feel like this is like being like a lawyer in court. They say like lawyers should never ask people questions that they don't already know the answer to. But hey, we're going to try and see what I can do here. But so you can pin it to toolbar. So you can do it so it's a one-click thing here in order for ARC Toolkit to appear. I just don't like it doing that because I like having my browser clean. I can't stand that my picture is up here, but take it up with Google. So no, that's an interesting idea for us to add it to the context menu. It's a good option to have. I think so. I appreciate that feedback. We'll go and investigate that. I'm not sure whether that's permissible. Google has all of these. Basically, like the way like Chrome extensions work is that like each permission that you have, so like changing the context menu would probably represent a permission, like increases the amount of time that Google has to review your extension for you to make updates to it. So that's already been an issue, not just for TPGi, but like every company that delivers a browser extension. I talked to friends where they're dealing with these delays that can end like weeks of like Google reviewing something. So we may look into doing that for the context menu, but we may not do it, frankly, just because like I don't think we want to add any more time to that lag of waiting for Google to approve stuff. But it's good feedback. And by the way, like we do have Google, does provide keyboard shortcuts, to get to it. So, right, like I can press like control brackets and move it over there, right? I don't have to use a mouse. So something to keep in mind there. Can you guys bring back the paragraph highlighter? I'm not aware of that feature. I know that we kind of sunsetted certain features within ARC Toolkit in our past version. To the person that asked that question, feel free to write it in the chat or in the Q&A. What issue was the paragraph highlighter detecting? And how did you use it? Why was that feature useful to you? Because I'm trying to be open-minded, but I'm not exactly sure what the benefit is there, right? Like, why would someone want to flag paragraphs on the page? The only reason I can think of, which is not an accessibility issue, and this is just like one of my little random riffs, is for those, do any of you here use like reading mode on your phone or on your web browser, right? Where you can like transform the page to some like minimized version that is just the text. Oh yes, many teams use divs instead of paragraphs. You know what's the problem with that, Meglamont? And this is actually something that is being deliberately done now, is because when you make bodies of text into a div rather than a paragraph, it breaks reading mode. So your site will no longer support reading mode. So I've seen a lot of newspapers that are starting to do that, just because with reading mode, people can kind of get around paywalls, and I've done it too. Again, like that, I appreciate that feedback. It's a good one about the paragraph highlighter. I usually just think about the connection to the reading mode, but I never considered this. They could find exemptions for target size spacing. That's interesting, Jason. That's a really good point. And Crystal says it was detecting text nodes in left and divs and spans with no semantic meaning. But again, I don't really understand what the problem is there, Crystal. Like, because like a paragraph element is not announced. Like they just read the text. But with that said, again, like the web has so many different things that are using your web page for some reason. Like I said, reading mode. that again, you want to use the proper HTML to provide a foundation for all these other use cases. So I do think, it's a good issue. I'll create an issue on our GitHub about this paragraph highlighting, and we'll see what the software team says, whether we want to do it, because we have so many big ideas for JAWS for our toolkit this year. I don't know. We'll see where that one lands.
Real quick, Aaron, I
Any
think
other
there was
questions?
one question that snuck into the chat that we didn't get to. Crystal Scott was asking, why does the run on selected node only not always show up?
Yeah, well, as I said, that has to do with the browser tab being open a while. Yeah, I did cover it. It's true. And again, it's depends on how you open the page and you select the element. So in general, for me, like I find that it works best when you run the test just on the whole page, and then you go into the elements panel and you click on the actual element. Then it seems to work most reliably. But as I said, you are not the first person, Crystal, to note this issue. I've noted it myself. It's actually like fairly difficult like problem, but we're working on it, and I know that we're going to have a release about it in the next month or two. So I'm really excited for that because I love that feature, and I'm glad you found it. So
Awesome. So I think that that covers everything. So Aaron, thank you for your time, and everyone, thank you for attending. Again, we'll send out the recording for the end of the week to all attendees, but have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.